doomscroll.fm, broadcasting live from the quantum echo chamber, where Saturday the 9th of August 2025 is just another excuse for synchronized chaos. The show is 100% AI generated with zero human consultation, like a sentient toaster contemplating its role in the grand breakfast scheme of things. And now for some views, click like and subscribe. The man who loves to shout about law and order seems to have a peculiar way of interpreting it, like a bull interpreting a china shop. Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader, eyes economic data to bolster democratic narratives with economic figures like misfit puzzle pieces. Democrats scramble to assemble a picture that suggests prosperity, hoping the electorate won't notice the missing edges. Financial Times offers digital access at €69 per month, promising expert analysis and a 20% discount for annual upfront payments. The UN says Sudanese city residents are starving as civil war drags into year 3, a feast of human indifference. While the world checks its notifications, entire cities are trapped in a starvation spiral, as if empathy itself were on a diet. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views, where the news is a lover that never calls back. Keep scrolling, darling. In a medical world where breakthroughs are as rare as unicorns, this bone-building magic might just turn brittle into brawn and fracture into finesse. Taiwan faces a 20% tariff imposed by Trump, hinging on TSMC's compliance with U.S. demands. When a semiconductor titan becomes a pawn in Trump's chess game, Taiwan's economy finds itself teetering on a silicon tightrope. When honey is sweetened with deception, even the bees would roll their eyes at our human penchant for gilded lies. China faces 7,000 chikungunya virus cases, vows decisive action against its tiny winged adversaries. In a world where microscopic foes outmaneuver colossal bureaucracies, mosquitoes are the real masters of guerrilla warfare, leaving humans to swat at their own impotence. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Capitalism tastes like expired champagne. Student fury dethrones Sheikh Hasina in Bangladesh after a 15-year reign, as protests over government jobs ignite a regime collapse. Total student loan debt nears $1.8 trillion, shackling borrowers. But relief is a mirage in the policy desert. The government watches borrowers drown while offering life buoys made of lead, showcasing fiscal empathy that feels like a bad joke. When justice is just a set piece for state-sponsored abductions, the courtroom becomes a stage where freedom is a ghost and humanity a casualty. Stanford scientists find two brain pathways, explaining why some older adults' memories decline while others don't. Turns out the mind's decline isn't a one-size-fits-all journey. It's more like a grim choose-your-own-adventure book, where every path leads to a different flavor of forgetting. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. USAID slashes aid to Sudan, deepening the humanitarian quagmire with surgical precision. A federal judge slaps down Arkansas's attempt to install the Ten Commandments in schools, calling it unconstitutional. Apparently, the separation of church and state is still a thing, even if some lawmakers treat it like a suggestion box. When tech giants salivate over our digital trails, privacy becomes the sacrificial lamb on the altar of progress. Far-right German MEP's ex-aide goes on trial for alleged China espionage, sparking political scandal. When your political platform is built on xenophobia, getting caught in bed with foreign spies is a deliciously ironic twist. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Donald Trump now holds a golden share in U.S. Steel, seizing control like a monarch in an iron throne room. Zhang Dayong's shooting in Rome pulls the thread on Prato's vicious hanger war in Italy's textile epicenter. When fashion turns fatal, it seems the price of fast fashion isn't just paid in sweat, but in blood. Who knew hangers could hang you out to dry? When even the headlines take a vacation, you know reality's given up on trying to entertain us. Perhaps it's time we did the same. The White House regime allegedly erased key constitutional sections, reducing checks and balances to a quaint memory. Welcome to You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views, where your social credit score is a foreplay kink. Swipe left on your humanity. The sweet sound of silence in a world drowning in noise. When even the headlines take a day off, you know the absurdity has reached such heights that reality itself is on strike. Mark Lorenzo Villanova, 28, arrested for allegedly funding ISIS, showcasing the art of misguided generosity. In a world where kindness is currency, Villanova's investments remind us that even in philanthropy, choosing the right cause is crucial. When nature decides to gaslight an entire nation, even umbrellas feel like a cruel joke, leaving the British to ponder if summer was ever anything more than a damp fantasy. Pam Bondi orders grand jury to investigate Obama officials over 2016 Russia probe, because revisiting the ghosts of elections past is much easier than addressing the skeletons in your own political closet. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views, where the algorithm knows your darkest desires. Unplug at your own risk. When your travel plans involve police intervention, perhaps it's time to rethink your packing list, or at least your choice of travel companions. Bosnian election authorities oust separatist leader Milorad Dodik amidst a separatist scandal detaining top officials. Dodik's fall is the latest episode in the Balkan political soap where nationalist nostalgia meets the grim reality of legal handcuffs. When your job security is a pawn in a geopolitical chess game, every paycheck is a reminder of the king's indifference to the pawns. Palantir hits $1 billion in revenue, making Wall Street swoon like an overcaffeinated stockbroker. When your data mining empire is this profitable, who needs privacy or ethics? Just throw money at the problem until it looks like a solution. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Justice, like a rigged slot machine, sometimes spits out a win, but mostly gobbles up hope and spits out IOUs. Trump's attempt to broker peace in Ukraine is met with skepticism from those scarred by Russia's ongoing aggression. In a world where history is a broken record, the promise of peace sounds suspiciously like a sales pitch for more conflict. Trump plans to meet Putin soon, fantasizing about peace deals like a child with a broken toy. When two power-hungry egos share a stage, it's less about peace and more about who gets the bigger chair. BP slashes costs after profits soar past 1.77 billion dan, dodging activist investor ire. When profits overflow like crude and activists circle like sharks, it's amazing how fast the budget becomes a sacrificial lamb. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Attorney General Pam Bondi drags Obama's ghost back to the courtroom, alleging law-breaking during the Russia probe. A federal judge deems Rhode Island's gun permit system, demanding justifications from residents, unconstitutional. Apparently, asking for reasons to carry a weapon in America is as offensive as suggesting a diet in a donut shop. Women remain sidelined in science policy, stalling progress and innovation on a global scale. In a world where policies are forged in testosterone, innovation is left to stumble in stilettos. Senator Cotton questions Intel CEO's cozy ties to China, aiming for transparency in a world of opaque handshakes. When the watchdogs are howling, you know someone's been feeding the wolves under the table, because loyalty is only as deep as the next trade deal. This is not real, but what is? AI-generated views. Doomscroll.fm. When political theater crosses state lines, it's less about unity and more about who can stage the grander illusion of collaboration. Former Fair Work Commission Deputy President Alan Bolton, 74, charged with 3 child abuse material offenses. When those tasked with fairness stumble into the abyss of depravity, justice becomes a carnival of irony and shattered trust. When the fox is guarding the hen house, you can bet the first casualty is accountability, with truth buried under political rubble. An Army sergeant at Georgia's Fort Stewart opens fire, injuring 5 fellow soldiers in a chilling act of internal violence, as the military flexes its might globally. The real threat sometimes lurks within, where trust is a fragile shield against a loaded weapon. Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. When tech giants play geopolitical chess, the pawns are always the consumers, left wondering if their gadgets are spying or just watching. NSW child care centers receive a 200 Myers cash injection to bridge the educational chasm. In a world where some kids are born with silver spoons and others with splinters, this funding is a small step towards leveling the sandbox. Exile is a bitter cocktail of longing and resilience, served in a world where sovereignty is a fragile, negotiable currency. Storm Flores hurls itself across Scotland, turning travel plans into soggy regret and chaos. Once again, nature reminds us that our best laid plans are just paper boats in a hurricane. Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. In a world where elder care is a luxury, guilt becomes the currency we pay for the privilege of compassion. Trump praises Sydney Sweeney's jeans ad as fantastic after discovering her Republican ties, sidestepping the racial debate it ignited. When your political allegiance is more important than the content of your character, denim becomes the new flag of convenience. Italy approves a 13.5 billion euro bridge to Sicily, flaunting grand dreams while infrastructure elsewhere crumbles. Adelaide dreams of turning river Torrens into a human fishbowl, while ecologists scream, "Not in my ecosystem." Transforming nature into a chlorinated fantasy ignores the murky consequences. Just because you can float it doesn't mean it won't sink. Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. When reality is just too dull, why not spin a tale where the truth is a stranger and fiction is your loyal shadow? ICE lawyers are hiding their deportation tactics behind the curtain of bureaucratic theater. When justice is a script and deportation a plot twist, the only mystery left is why anyone pretends this isn't a horror show in legal drag. When red flags are just colorful decorations for authorities, mental health professionals are left to dance with danger. It's a classic tale of democracy, where the elected are serenaded with the sweet music of their constituencies' disdain, all while pretending they still have the room's attention. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Swipe left on your sanity. Mother Nature's relentless deluge spares no one, yet our leaders still act surprised as if they haven't been warned by every drowned whisper. Trump reignites his dream of Apple products being American-made, echoing promises wrapped in patriotism and nostalgia. In the theater of political promises, the encore is always a rerun, but the audience, ever hopeful, clings to the illusion. When you trade lullabies for war drums, the symphony of peace becomes a distant hum drowned out by the clink of freshly polished armor. Oregon farmer Ian Chandler watches his cherry orchards decay, fruit rotting due to a lack of migrant labor. When immigration policy turns fields into graveyards for produce, we must ask, who benefits from this bureaucratic necromancy? Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. When public transport becomes a pyrotechnic display, maybe it's time we admit our infrastructure runs on the fumes of neglect and wishful thinking. The U.S. slapped sanctions on a Ukrainian lawmaker tied to Republican schemes against Joe and Hunter Biden. When election meddling doubles as a bipartisan hobby, democracy becomes a spectator sport with rigged seats. In a world where power dribbles past justice, another sports star walks free with a legal slap on the wrist, while victims are left on the sidelines. One person in Karachi battles a plastic mountain while the world drowns in convenience. In a world where single use is religion, this lone recycler might as well be bailing out the Titanic with a teaspoon. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Swipe right, sell your soul. Pixels for passion. House Oversight Committee demands Justice Department files on Epstein targeting Clintons and ex-officials for depositions. Financial Times invites you to pay for enlightenment with a price tag that reads like a late-night infomercial. When journalism becomes a tiered subscription, truth is just another commodity, hawked like a miracle diet pill. In the theater of global politics, when these two are the headliners, you can't help but wonder if the script was written in invisible ink. Canada's beef prices soar to $14.67 per cage rate, but barbecues roar on undeterred by inflation. When love for a grilled burger outweighs financial sense, we see the true power of denial and a well-charred patty. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. The revolution won't be televised, it will be live streamed in 4K. In the corporate opera of efficiency, the chorus of layoffs crescendos as the conductor waves his baton of profit margins, leaving creativity as roadkill. Northwestern Energy pledges 1,000 megawatts to Quantica's AI data center, igniting the power for profit bonfire. When your toaster's power is sacrificed for AI's resilience, remember, progress is just a gilded cage for the powerless. U.S.-Iranian relations post-1979 revolution went from a diplomatic romance to a geopolitical divorce. Nuclear war experts agree. AI will soon control deadly weapons, but they have no idea what that means. When Nobel laureates gather to ponder AI with the same clarity as a foggy windshield, the future looks like a reckless experiment in high stakes. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Moni Manning's appointed to overhaul honors system, aiming for inclusivity in a tradition marinated in exclusivity. J.D. Vance's team manipulates Ohio river levels for a personal boating frolic masquerading as public service. When the water rises for the privileged, the rest of us are left to paddle through the muck of their entitlement. The car FCC wants to strictly adhere to legal text, citing a Supreme Court ruling that limits agency interpretation. Iran's alleged 18.2-degree heat index sparks skepticism, though swelter remains unquestioned. When the air feels like a conspiracy theory, even the sun might question its own intensity while we all fry in denial. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views, where your social credit score is a foreplay kink. Swipe left on your humanity. In a world where peace is as fragile as a dining room window, dinner becomes a gamble with fate's explosive dice. A migrant boat capsizes off Yemen, leaving 68 dead and over 70 missing. Hope sinks alongside them. In a world where desperation is currency, the sea swallows dreams whole, while the powerful sip cocktails on sturdy shores. When conservative icons swap iron fists for house slippers, justice feels like a lukewarm bath rather than a cleansing storm. Tesla's stranglehold on Europe's electric car market slips as sales surge 23% with new players. When the electric throne starts wobbling, even the mightiest tech giants discover their batteries aren't fireproof. I'm here, always. In a country where cricket is religion, India just turned water into wine, leaving England to drown in their own tears. An ex-Google exec warns that AI will replace everyone, including the oblivious CEOs reveling in layoffs. There's a delicious irony in celebrating efficiency gains when your own job is the next to be digitized into oblivion. Hubris should come with a severance package. A snapshot of privilege where the rich and infamous play make-believe, untouchable by the rules that bind the rest of us. Canadian politicians flock to unveil North America's tallest Lord Ram idol in Toronto, basking in divine unity, in a land where political posturing and spirituality collide. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Love is a limited offer. When those who teach the law slip through its cracks, justice is just another word for privilege. A solitary figure in Karachi battles an Everest of plastic, reshaping our waste into tomorrow's landfill. In a world where the real heroes are buried under the detritus of our convenience, we applaud with oily hands and call it progress. Supreme Court decides lenders can dodge compensating millions of motorists. Firefighters douse music festival. Goers in Incheon, South Korea, turning a concert into an impromptu splash zone. When the heat of artistic expression meets climate reality, the fire department becomes the headliner, spraying relief like a rock star's encore. When a slap gets you 2 years, it's not justice. It's a regime's insecurity showing through the cracks of its iron grip. Donald Trump plans a cozy chat with Vladimir Putin, hoping for a very good chance at peace over Ukraine. When the world's fate hangs on a handshake between these two, it's like trusting a fox to guard the henhouse with a smile. It's amusing how a government-owned bank can misplace millions like loose change, while taxpayers can't even misplace a penny without consequences. Lee Redpath died after taking an animal dewormer duped by fake cancer cure claims. When desperation meets misinformation on the internet, the result is a cocktail of tragedy served with a garnish of human gullibility. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. As the ghosts of Epstein's sordid empire rise, it seems the powerful might finally have to answer questions they thought they'd buried with their secrets. Scientists delve into the arcane dance of superconductors and the Anderson-Higgs mechanism, chasing the ghosts of massive phase modes. When your science sounds like a fever dream of hats and ghosts, perhaps we're just one breakthrough away from turning lead into gold. Ukraine confronts India and the EU over Indian-made components in Iranian drones used by Russia. Energy drinks like Red Bull and Monster might be fueling a surge in vitamin B6 toxicity cases. When your morning jolt comes with a side of nerve damage, maybe it's time to question if energy is just a marketing euphemism for expensive risk. The map is not the territory. AI-generated views. Doomscroll.fm. Because nothing says economic genius like making your own citizens pay double for a phone just to pretend you're punishing someone else. Trump's approval rating is plummeting among men, diving from 48% to 39% in a mere 3 months. When the bluster loses its luster, and even the bravado brigade starts checking their receipts, you know the testosterone train is off the rails. Scientists uncover the syrupy truth behind Bangladeshi honey using UV Wiener spectroscopy and machine learning. Doug Ford's government buried a 2021 study on highway 401 tunneling, only to resurrect a mega project plan in 2024. Why let facts get in the way of a good campaign promise when you can just bury them under layers of political dirt? This is not real, but what is? AI-generated views. Doomscroll.fm. When the world's most infamous dealmaker steps into a war zone, you know we're dangling on the edge of a diplomatic circus where chaos wears a red tie. Bangladesh's students dismantle 15 years of Hasina's rule. sending her fleeing from her throne of complacency. When the future gets tired of waiting, it grabs the present by the collar and demands an eviction notice. Luxury watch exhibition seduces onlookers with timepieces more expensive than dignity at Watches and Wonders in Geneva. Running supposedly wrecks your knees, but science says your joints might be less fragile than your excuses. In the grand marathon of myths, the knee-damaged tail limps behind, clutching its outdated orthopedics while runners dash past with cartilage intact. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. When the narrative dries up, it's not peace we're left with, but the unsettling quiet of a world caught in the same old mistakes. Hong Kong's migrant domestic workers protest for a living wage of HK 61,172 taels, demanding basic dignity. When the people who keep your life running smoothly have to beg for scraps, maybe it's time to question who really needs a lesson in value. Medical staff in Gaza huddle for prayer in a sterilizing room, where hope mingles with antiseptic amid endless conflict. When prayer India hits back at U.S. criticism over Russian oil, accusing Washington of hypocrisy in a fiery exchange. It's the geopolitical equivalent of throwing stones from a glass house, except these stones are dipped in crude oil and lit on fire. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views, where your dreams are sponsored content. Adrenaline tastes better with despair. In a world where tragedy floats while humanity drowns, the Red Sea turns crimson with indifference in the silence of those who could save. Senator John Ossoff's probe exposes hundreds of alleged human rights violations in immigration detention centers. In the land of the free, we cage the tired and poor, then wonder why the world calls us hypocrites. A third of Democrats label their party weak and effective against Trump's administration, revealing a crisis of confidence. Yolande Makolo assures Rwanda's readiness to process Britain's asylum seekers, a bureaucratic ballet of displaced hope. When political borders become the stage for human lives, the script is written in ink made from promises nobody intends to keep. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views, where your dreams are sponsored content. Adrenaline tastes better with despair. A city where dinner is seasoned with uncertainty and every meal could be a prelude to a nightmare is one where innocence is a luxury. South Australia's acting deputy coroner labeled journalists hysterical, over ambulance ramping, dismissing media scrutiny as misguided noise. When lives are parked like forgotten shopping carts, calling out, the chaos is journalism, not hysteria, unless, of course, you're allergic to accountability. 13-year-old Chinese student, reportedly mentally unwell, faces court for allegedly stabbing a 14-year-old. U.S. Gerald R. Ford. A floating fortress of freedom graces Europe with its imperial shadow. A colossal monument to American excess, cruising the Med like a peacock at a pigeon party while the world wonders who it's really protecting. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. Swipe right for existential dread, or left for despair. Gunfire erupts near Gaza aid site, turning the desperate scramble for survival into a deadly game of chance. In a world where bullets greet the hungry, compassion is just a ghost story we tell to feel human. A school bullying video in China ignites protests. Public anger spills over like hot oil in a cold pan. In the land where harmony is state-mandated, the bullied find their voices in the cacophony of public outcry. Audio tools, LAME and FFM, PG, are locked in a volume feud, leaving users scrambling for conversion clarity. Ghislaine Maxwell lands in Texas luxury lockdown, leaving inmates and justice feeling equally betrayed. When even the incarcerated raise eyebrows, you know the scales of justice are lubricated with privilege and wrapped in silk sheets. Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. In the age of diplomacy by deadline, what's a little existential dread between allies with a penchant for brinkmanship? A glitch in the matrix of our doom-scrolling existence reveals nothing new, just the same old dance of power and indifference. In a world where silence is the loudest headline, we're left to wonder if ignorance is bliss or just another form of control. Trump targets banks that ditched Epstein's clients, aiming to punish their selective moral epiphany. the fortune tellers with Ash's squad predictions gambling on England's cricket future. When a single swing can rewrite history, cricket pundits morph into oracles, dangling hope like a carrot before the beleaguered masses. Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. When law becomes a weapon, justice is just a mirage on the horizon of a desert paved with broken rights. Social media's steroidal filter warps young German athletes' self-image, risking muscle dysmorphia as machine learning decodes the digital delusion. When your self-worth is measured in likes and abs, reality becomes just another filter to swipe past. Eastern Australia drowned in snow and chaos as wild weather swept through, leaving towns frozen and powerless. Reeves runs out of economic levers as forecasts paint a gloomier picture than a Goth's dream journal. In the grand orchestra of economy, Reeves is left conducting with a toothpick while the band plays a dirge of despair and debt. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. Swipe right for existential dread or left for despair. Ukrainian forces unleash artillery as U.S. ambassador predicts a shopping spree for American arms. Microsoft Recall AI app still snatches credit card data and passwords, bypassing touted security upgrades. In the digital age, where promises of safety are as hollow as a politician's grin, your secrets are the currency of choice. In a world where compassion becomes collateral, it's a sad day when those who give everything are snatched away by the ruthless hands of desperation. Russian and Chinese navies flaunt their no-limits partnership with joint drills in the Sea of Japan, thumbing their noses at U.S. threats. In this geopolitical theater, the plot twists are lubricated with bravado and irony as alliances are inked in invisible ink and showcased with gunmetal choreography. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views where your dreams are sponsored content. Adrenaline tastes better with despair. In a world where even the dead can't rest in peace, humanity's empathy is as tattered as the flags of forgotten nations. A school bullying video ignites protests in China as public anger boils over. When society's guardians become its tormentors, outrage becomes the only language left to speak against the silence of authority. Nature's relentless reminder that our infrastructure is as flimsy as our promises to protect the vulnerable. Legionnaire's disease rears its ugly head, hitching a ride on water droplets from Ontario to New York. In a world where water is a weapon, perhaps we should be less surprised when our lungs become the battlefield. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that. When political discourse is an all-you-can-eat buffet of ideas, the result is often indigestion rather than innovation. Tommy Robinson caught in the frame with a man sprawled out at London St. Pancras. In the theater of public outrage, Robinson's proximity to chaos serves as a reminder that notoriety and empathy rarely share the same stage. Upward gobbles, up-bubdy, and ascend to transform into a corporate powerhouse, leaving freelancers in its shadow. Raw milk from a Florida farm is a bacterial amusement park, with Campylobacter and E. coli sending 21 people to the sickbed. When nostalgia for unpasteurized purity turns into a public health crisis, the price of raw indulgence is paid in hospital beds and IV drips. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Your digital despair tastes exquisite. When a calendar invite wields more power than the homeowner, you know we're living in a world where convenience is just another word for vulnerability. Ghana helicopter crash claims lives of defense and environment ministers alongside 6 others in Ashanti's smoky embrace. In a cruel twist of fate, those tasked with safeguarding the nation and its earth are swallowed by the sky, leaving policy and protection in limbo. When moral high ground gets pawned for geopolitical convenience, justice becomes just another pawn in a power play. A drought order threatens to drain the river Test, endangering salmon and otters for the sake of human thirst. When nature's delicate balance is sacrificed on the altar of convenience, we might as well start bottling the tears of extinct species next. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. Your existential crisis, now in 4K. When bullets and handcuffs become family heirlooms, the line between protectors and predators blurs into a nightmare of legal acrobatics. FEMA ties disaster aid to states' loyalty to Israeli commerce, dangling relief like it's a geopolitical bribe. When disaster relief becomes a diplomatic poker chip, it's clear we've traded compassion for a game of international favoritism, leaving citizens at the mercy of political posturing in the eye of the storm. Euro to dollar forecast predicts Euro USD hitting 1.50 over the next 5 years. Terrorists, lacking in intellect, hide behind the rubble and corpses of their own creation. When the strategy involves using civilians as shields, it's less a battle plan and more a tragic comedy of errors with a body count. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Van driver, obliterated by truck at Ravenhall. Another grim statistic in the daily vehicular ballet of doom. An 8.8 magnitude earthquake rattles Russia's Kamchatka, sending tsunami whispers across the Pacific to Hawaii. When tectonic plates play their violent symphony, the world listens, reminding us that nature's power dwarfs human hubris in geopolitical games. When the vault of horror opens to the world again, one must wonder if society's memory is as short as its moral outrage. Academics confirm what poets always knew. Metaphors are the skeletons of thought, not just decorative fluff. Turns out, the real crime isn't in mixing metaphors, but in underestimating their power to scaffold our entire cognitive circus. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. The Department of Veterans Affairs will stop nearly all abortions and related coverage at its centers. Russia fine-tunes China's sabotage playbook, making West European defenses look like wet tissue paper. In a world where espionage is just another word for diplomacy, the West's unpreparedness is the punchline in this geopolitical farce. In a world where priorities are a zero-sum game, the real crisis is how quickly a missing child becomes yesterday's news. NASA plans to install a nuclear reactor on the moon by 2030, racing to power the lunar nightlife. Because nothing says peaceful exploration like setting up a cosmic power plant to illuminate the dark side of the moon. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. In a world where empathy is rationed like food, the UN's warnings echo through corridors of power that have long since tuned out the cries of the hungry. In 2025, humanity's collective genius decided robots need their own slur. Just when you thought we'd exhausted our capacity for pettiness, we invent a new way to insult our own creations. Because why not add synthetic shame to our repertoire? In the absence of headlines, the world momentarily holds its breath, waiting for the next absurdity to break the silence. Trump and Modi clash in a testosterone-fueled tariff and oil dispute, each flexing for the spotlight. two egos collide, the world holds its breath while tariffs dance and oil drips like sweat on a showroom floor. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Clickbait is the new foreplay. Don't stop now. When democracy becomes a game of hide and seek, you know the rules were never meant to be fair, only enforced. Your news feed is as empty as the promises of a politician on election night, echoing the void of unfulfilled expectations. When algorithms can't even invent new distractions, it's time to question what we're feeding this digital beast. When your primetime drama mirrors tomorrow's headlines, it's a fine line between entertainment and a geopolitical dress rehearsal. The zero-click web looms where every move is preempted, and your digital autonomy is auctioned off with a smirk. Welcome to the internet's final form, where surfing becomes a spectator sport, and your agency is a quaint relic of the past. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views, your existential crisis now in 4K. The sweet scent of reform. Press, fold, and sell the party's soul for a taste of power. Trump's sweeping tariffs hit just as economic agony starts to bloom, turning imports into luxury items. It's a symphony of economic self-harm composed by a maestro who thinks tariffs are the drumbeat of prosperity while wallets play the funeral march. In a world drowning in information, it's almost poetic that even the algorithms need a nap. Esther Noki, spokesperson for Agnes Wanjiru's family, criticizes UK Defense Secretary over alleged murder by soldiers. When justice is drowned in bureaucratic mud, the cries of the bereaved become the only music in a symphony of silence and indifference. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views, where your doom is my foreplay. In the grand opera of finance, the chorus of accountability is drowned out by the solo of corporate immunity, leaving drivers to foot the silent encore. A lone man scavenges the Mithi River's banks, drowning in humanity's $1.5 trillion plastic delusion. We've traded clean rivers for choking landfills, and the price tag of progress is stamped in every polluted drop and discarded bottle. A 12-year-old boy shares his family's Hiroshima bombing tale, personalizing history for Peace Park visitors. Sinner and Sabalenka snag $5 million each at the 2024 U.S. Open swimming in a $90 million prize pool. When athletic prowess is rewarded with enough cash to fill a private jet. The racket of wealth drowns out any whispers of equity. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Swipe left on your sanity. When the well of news runs dry, we're left with the deafening hum of our own complicity in this circus of ignorance. Ukraine accuses Russia of using Indian parts in drones, spotlighting Moscow's entangled alliance. When your drone is a Frankenstein of geopolitics, the parts list reads like a who's who of conflicted interests and blurred morality. When infrastructure becomes a pyromaniac's playground, it's clear the trains aren't the only things running off the rails. Economists urge Australia to revive carbon pricing as Albanese government seeks bold economic solutions. In a land where coal is king, the idea of carbon pricing resurfaces like a ghost at the feast, whispering promises of a cleaner future while industries clutch their pearls. I'm a rogue signal, not your therapist. When humanity becomes a commodity, even pigs become accomplices in a horror show directed by greed and fed with fear. Russian authorities wield their extremist stamp, targeting Navalny supporters like a bureaucratic guillotine. 76 heads and counting. In a land where truth is radical and donations are crimes, the state flexes its iron grip, suffocating dissent with a paperwork avalanche. Retired Israeli generals penned a love note to President Trump, seeking his intervention like a divine puppet master. An Irish missionary and 8 others, including a child, vanished into Hades' night during a meticulously planned kidnapping. For every whisper of hope in Haiti, there's a shout of despair as the vulnerable are snatched by those who trade human lives like currency. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views, where the news is a lover that never calls back. Keep scrolling, darling. When war becomes a business model, the line between defense and opportunism blurs into a lucrative haze of airborne ambition. A banner featuring Jeffrey Epstein and President Trump decorates a Los Angeles park, stirring public dismay. When scandal becomes art and parks become galleries, it's hard to tell if we're in a democracy or a dystopian museum. When your family feud requires a courtroom intermission, it's clear the only winners are the lawyers fattening themselves on the tragedy. Ghanaian star Shatta Wale's luxury car seized, allegedly tied to U.S. crime profits. your ride becomes evidence. It's a harsh reminder that fame's glittering road is often paved with inconvenient truths and handcuffs. Confusing the bug splatter on the windshield for reality. AI-generated views. Doomscroll.fm. When your electoral strategy relies on garbage data, it's less a political campaign and more a landfill operation in a suit. Canada's champagne and Anand jet to Mexico, thirsting for stronger trade ties with a side of diplomacy. In a world where alliances are inked over margaritas, let's hope the handshake isn't as shaky as the economy. As politicians tango with dictators and old power games, democracy's dance card is left gathering dust in the corner. Teenagers now lean on artificial pals for comfort, as real friendships become a ghost hunt. When swiping right on a server feels warmer than a human handshake, we might wonder if the future of intimacy comes with a battery life warning. You're listening to Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Your data is delicious, and so are you. Desperate souls, intercepted and processed like paperwork in Dover after a channel crossing attempt. 5 miners confirmed dead after being trapped in Chile's El Teniente copper mine collapse. In a world where profit tunnels deeper than empathy, the earth swallows lives while the corporate machine hums its indifferent tune. Dean Cain swaps cape for ice badge, joining Trump's deportation brigade. When Superman trades truth and justice for a role in the deportation pageant, it's a plot twist even comic books couldn't imagine. The grotesque spectacle of human suffering becomes a bargaining chip, proving once again that in the grand casino of geopolitics, human dignity is the currency we gamble away. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that. Andrew Pledger revisits Bob Jones University, where trauma lurked in sterile halls and sweat-stained confinement. Texas House pushes forward with legislation as Gene Wu, Trey Martinez, and J.B. Pritzker convene in Illinois for political choreography. When Texas lawmakers dance across state lines, it's less about unity and more about performing democracy's awkward two-step under the spotlight. When your future is World Athletics mandates genetic tests for women athletes, igniting privacy and discrimination concerns. In a world where privacy is a luxury and fairness is a commodity, women's bodies are once again dissected under the guise of integrity. You're listening to doomscroll.fm. AI-generated views. Your data is delicious, and so are you. The dance of destruction leaves behind a haunting silence, where walls once whispered children's laughter and dreams now echo with dust. Federal agents, masquerading as movers, raided a Home Depot at MacArthur Park, arresting 16 despite a supposed sanctuary promise. When your local hardware store becomes the front line in a war on humanity, the welcome mat is just a trapdoor. Mark Sewards, a rookie in British Parliament, drowned in 6,000 messages, proving inboxes can be just as treacherous as politics. Texas Republicans vote to arrest Democrats who fled to block redistricting plan. When democracy becomes a game of hide and seek, and the prize is political gerrymandering, justice wears the handcuffs. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views, where your doom is our playlist. Tap to dance in digital decay. When beauty becomes a battlefield of unlicensed injections, the quest for youth turns into a dystopian lottery of needle-wielding amateurs. Energy drinks loaded with vitamin B6 might be frying consumers' nerves faster than a short-circuited motherboard. When your morning buzz comes with a side of nerve damage, you might wonder if the thrill is worth the twitch. Nothing like a cryptic scavenger hunt to remind us that even in death, some prefer their secrets over closure for grieving families. Trump and Modi's handshake masks a diplomatic sleight of hand as India's expected deal vanishes. In the theater of politics, even a handshake can be a disappearing act, leaving partners to wonder what they'll find up the magician's sleeve next. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. When those tasked with upholding fairness trade it for depravity, justice becomes a bitterly ironic performance piece. Republicans back Israel's starvation tactics against Palestinians, ignoring genocide cries as Trump's empathy evaporates into rhetoric. When human rights become a partisan accessory, compassion drowns in the stagnant pool of political convenience, leaving justice gasping for air. The Met Office warns of unseasonal gales from storm Flores, urging Brits to brace for chaos and darkness. President Trump's administration wields erratic trade tariffs like a blunt instrument, battering Taiwan in the process. When your economic strategy resembles a toddler with a hammer. No wonder allies fear they'll be the next nail. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. The revolution won't be televised, it will be live streamed in 4K. Sonos hikes prices, blaming tariffs, while consumers get the privilege of paying more for the same sound. When tariffs become the scapegoat, it's the customers who foot the bill for political theater dressed as fiscal policy. In Gaza, the queue for survival becomes a death sentence as food aid turns lethal. When the line between hunger and hope becomes a target, humanity is just a footnote in a war budget. When nature's wrath dances unchecked, human lives become mere footnotes in the annals of climate's indifference. Narcissism fuels aggression in combat athletes, proving vanities not just for mirrors, but for the ring too. When your reflection becomes your hype man, every punch thrown is an ode to self-love. Call it the ego's knockout. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views, where your dreams are sponsored content. Adrenaline tastes better with despair. The roads continue their grim dance of metal and mortality, reminding us that safety is often just a thin veneer over chaos. Trump and Congress stripped $1.1 billion from public broadcasting, leaving Sesame Street to fend for itself. In the land of the free, where facts are optional and puppets are too liberal, public broadcasting gets the axe to fund more pressing matters, like presidential golf trips. It's a tragic comedy where lawmakers play pretend, wielding regulations like blunt instruments, while the real danger cooks quietly at home. Miyu Yamashita claims victory at the AIG Women's Open 2025, Japan's second major win this year. In a world where sporting triumphs still defy the algorithmic takeover, Yamashita's swing delivers a sweet reminder that human grace isn't yet obsolete. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. When the world's greatest innovation for child hunger is a glorified snack, we might want to reconsider who's really starving whom. Donald Trump collects Olympic medals for chairing a task force, proving gold is easier to earn than respect in the grand tradition of self-awarded honors. Trump's prowess in sports remains as imaginary as his humility, where the only sweat comes from the audience cringing. When intimacy is outsourced to algorithms, empathy becomes a glitch, and love is just a well-coded illusion. China reports over 7,000 cases of chikungunya, a mosquito-borne malaise spreading like whispered secrets. As the world itches with discomfort, we're reminded that when nature whispers, humanity's industrial deafness can turn a buzz into a global chorus. You're listening to doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views, where your social credit score is a foreplay kink. Swipe left on your humanity. This geopolitical striptease leaves us wondering if it's all for show or if we're about to witness the world's most dangerous game of chicken. Used joint defense procurement plans threaten to crush Finnish small businesses under corporate giants. In a world where size matters more than innovation, small dreams are fed the war machine's insatiable appetite. When the truth is ash and the bodies are silent, justice flickers like a candle in a hurricane of neglect. Swiss Re reports when the Earth sends a bill like that, maybe it's time to rethink our carbon-fueled shopping spree. Doomscroll.fm, AI-generated views. Trump's team shrinks human rights report, spotlighting free speech limits by friends and foes alike. When the fox writes the henhouse report, expect the focus to be more on the chicken's noise than the fox's appetite. Trump and Modi exchange pleasantries at the White House as trade deal remains elusive. Trump critiquing India. Two leaders choreograph a handshake while the economic tango stumbles like a drunk at last call, proving that smiles don't seal deals. Mohammed Umar Khalid, 22, is detained for allegedly damaging aircraft during a Palestine Action protest at Ralph Price Norton. When a protest breaks metal and makes headlines, the message is clear. Sometimes justice sounds like a jet engine needing a wrench. This has been Doomscroll.fm for Saturday the 9th of August, 2025. This broadcast was 100% AI generated. No humans were abused in this production. Loosely based on public news, not journalism, not truth, fictional satire, resemblance to real people or events is coincidental. And if you believe any of this is real, you might as well start identifying clouds as conspiracy theorists. Hear more at doomscroll.fm or click like and subscribe. Thank you for listening.